Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into the dark, dramatic, and honestly pretty shocking world of John Webster's The Duchess of Malfi. It is hands down one of the most powerful and, well, controversial tragedies of the 17th century. So, this question, it's really the engine of the entire play. It's all about this explosive secret and this one woman's defiant struggle for her own freedom in a world that is just dead set on controlling her at any cost. Okay, so let's start with that secret. We're talking about a story of forbidden love that, spoiler alert, is going to have some deadly, tragic consequences for pretty much everyone involved. All right, so first up, let's meet the Duchess of Malfi herself. Now, she's a young noblewoman, and after her husband dies, she finds herself in this incredibly rare position for a woman of her time. I mean, she's independent, she's wealthy, and she's in charge of her own state. She's got it all, right? Well, not so fast. Her freedom is immediately, and I mean immediately, threatened by her two powerful brothers. First, you've got the Cardinal. Think cold, calculating, a total manipulator. Then there's Duke Ferdinand, her twin, whose personality is just, wow. He's described as perverse and turbulent, which is a nice way of saying he's prone to these insane fits of rage. So these two brothers, they lay down the law. She is absolutely forbidden from marrying again. Now, on the surface, they're all like, oh, it's about family honor. We can't have our noble bloodline disgraced. But really, underneath all that, they've got their own greedy, pretty sinister plans for her and her massive fortune. But here's the thing about the Duchess. She is a woman of immense courage, and she is not going to be controlled. So in this incredible act of defiance, she secretly marries Antonio, her steward. Now, he's a good guy, honest and virtuous, but, and this is the huge problem, he's of a lower social rank. Their marriage is just unthinkable to everyone else. And this one single private act of love, it's the spark that's going to set their entire world on fire. So you might be asking yourself, what kind of world produces a story this dark, this violent? Well, to really get this play, you have to understand the time it was written in. Okay, so the play was written during a huge transition period in England. Queen Elizabeth I had just died, and that really marked the end of a pretty stable, optimistic era. The new king, James I, comes in, and with him comes this period of deep anxiety and a whole lot of political uncertainty. And James I's court? It was a total hotbed of paranoia. I mean, you had conspiracies popping up everywhere, corruption was just rampant, and there was this general sense of decay that just seemed to be hanging over society. And this national mood, this feeling that the world was just fundamentally broken, it bled directly into the theaters. And it created this new kind of drama that was obsessed with cynicism, with violence, and with all sorts of moral gray areas. Now, this dark, anxious mood didn't just appear out of nowhere. It actually combined with a couple of really powerful literary influences to create the perfect recipe for a brutal new genre, the Jacobean revenge tragedy. So playwrights like Webster basically created this cocktail of chaos. From the ancient Roman writer Seneca, they took a taste for really bloody revenge and spectacular violence. Think of Ferdinand's insane rage. And then from the Italian philosopher Machiavelli, they learned how to craft characters who were masters of ruthless, manipulative power games. And that, right there, is a perfect description of the Cardinal. All right, so let's see how this corrupt world and these powerful influences really shaped the unforgettable characters of the play. Right at the heart of the story, you have the Duchess herself. She is this shining example of virtue in an absolutely corrupt world. And despite the horrific, and I mean truly horrific, psychological and physical torture her brothers put her through, her spirit never breaks. This famous line, "I am Duchess of Malfi still," it's her ultimate act of defiance. She's basically declaring that even as she's facing death, they cannot destroy who she is. And her tormentors, they're her own brothers, this terrifying duo of corruption. Ferdinand is all hot-headed, violent rage, and he's driven by this really dark, twisted jealousy of his sister. The Cardinal, on the other hand, is pure ice. He's the calculating, Machiavellian schemer, using his position in the church as a cover for his boundless ambition and cruelty. And caught right in the middle of all this is Bosola, the spy. Now, he is one of literature's most fascinating and complicated figures. He's a classic malcontent, which means he's an educated, cynical guy who feels like society has cheated him out of what he deserves.
So he becomes the brothers' tool villain, doing their dirty work for money. But, and this is key, he's haunted by a surprisingly sharp conscience, which makes him both a villain and a tragic victim of this messed up world. Okay, so after all the plotting, the torture, the bloodshed, we have to ask ourselves, what's the ultimate message here? What is Webster's final verdict on the world? The critic David Cecil really summed it up perfectly. Webster paints this incredibly bleak picture of a fallen world, a place that is just fundamentally and incurably corrupt. In this world, the good characters, like the Duchess and Antonio, they're often just passive victims. They get swept up and ultimately destroyed by the furious energy of the wicked. But, and this is important, there is a kind of brutal justice at work. Webster shows us a universe where evil is like a snake that inevitably eats its own tail. The villain's own paranoia and their own scheming become the very instruments of their destruction, leading to this final, bloody collapse. And this leads to the play's really chilling takeaway. Virtue is glorified, yes, but it's a cold comfort. Justice does arrive, but only after the innocent have already suffered and died. So in Webster's world, goodness is rewarded, but it's usually only in the afterlife. And that leaves us with a final, haunting question that keeps this 400-year-old play so powerful today. In a world where corruption seems inescapable, where evil seems to have all the energy and all the power, is standing up for what's right worth it, even if the only reward you might get is a noble death? It's a tough question, and it's one that Webster leaves echoing long, long after the final curtain falls.